She watched another wealthy stranger raise his bidding paddle and silently accepted that tonight would be no different. Then something happened that no one inside the club had ever witnessed. The most feared mafia boss in the city stood up, bought the entire club, and instead of claiming the girl everyone believed he wanted, he handed her the ownership papers to her own life. The room fell silent. No one understood why a man who could own anything would spend millions just to set one broken woman free. But the answer wasn't kindness. It was a promise he had made years ago, to someone already buried. And when she discovered who that promise was made to, everything she believed about the monster standing in front of her would change forever. Stay with me, because this story doesn't begin with love. It begins with a debt that could only be repaid by giving away everything. People always imagine that cages are made of iron. They're wrong. Sometimes they're built from unpaid debts, sometimes from fear, and sometimes they're hidden behind velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers, and expensive champagne. That was where Isabella lived. Every night she smiled for strangers. Every night rich men competed to buy a few hours of her company. She never argued, never cried, never begged, because she had already learned something cruel about survival. Hope was dangerous. 3 years earlier, her father had borrowed money from the wrong people. He never managed to repay it. When he disappeared, his debt didn't disappear with him. It became hers. The club owner called it employment. Everyone else knew it was ownership. She wasn't allowed to leave, wasn't allowed to dream, wasn't allowed to fall in love. Until one rainy Friday evening, a black convoy stopped outside the club. Every conversation died. Even the guards looked nervous, because only one man arrived with that many bodyguards. Adrian Moretti, a name whispered rather than spoken. A man whose enemies disappeared without explanations. A billionaire whose businesses stretched across the world. A mafia boss who rarely appeared in public unless something important was about to happen. Everyone assumed he had come to purchase the most expensive woman in the building. Instead, he quietly asked one question: how much for the entire club? The owner laughed. 5 minutes later, lawyers arrived. Bank transfers were confirmed. Security changed uniforms. And by midnight, the club belonged to Adrian Moretti. But Isabella's confusion was only beginning, because he never looked at her the way other men did. Not once, not even for a second. Instead, he looked guilty, as though every moment he saw her reminded him of something he'd spent years trying to forget. She didn't know it yet, but the reason he had bought the club had nothing to do with desire. It had everything to do with a letter hidden inside a locked safe. A letter written by the only person Adrian had ever failed to save. And when Isabella finally read those words, she would realize her life had been connected to his long before either of them knew. The next morning, Isabella expected another owner, just richer. Instead, Adrian walked into the office carrying a single envelope. Inside were legal documents. Her debt was erased. Her employment contract no longer existed. Her identification papers were returned. For the first time in years, she could simply walk away. But freedom terrified her. Where could she go? She had no family, no home, no friends left. Adrian offered her a temporary apartment, insisting there were no conditions. She refused, then accepted, not because she trusted him, because she had nowhere else to sleep. Days turned into weeks. She discovered something unexpected. The feared mafia boss lived an almost lonely life. He preferred books over parties, silence over celebrations, late-night coffee over expensive wine. Every evening he disappeared into one locked room, and every evening he emerged looking older than before. One night curiosity won. When Adrian rushed away after receiving an emergency call, he accidentally left the room unlocked. Inside, there were hundreds of letters, photographs, old newspaper clippings, and one picture that froze Isabella where she stood, her mother, standing beside a much younger Adrian, smiling. Why had her mother never mentioned him? Before she could investigate further, Adrian returned. Instead of becoming angry, he simply closed the box, then whispered something that made Isabella's heart stop. I promised her I would find you. Adrian finally revealed everything. Years earlier, Isabella's mother had secretly worked as an accountant inside one of the criminal organizations competing with Adrian's family. She wasn't involved in crime. She was trapped by circumstance. When she discovered innocent people were being exploited, she gathered evidence intending to expose everyone. Adrian met her during that dangerous time. He offered protection, But she refused to abandon her daughter. Before Adrian could move them somewhere safe, she disappeared. Everyone believed she had been killed. The only thing Adrian ever recovered was a letter. Inside it was one request. If anything happens to me, please make sure Isabella grows up free. He searched for years, but Isabella had vanished after her father's gambling. Debts swallowed their lives. By the time Adrian finally found her, she already belonged to the club. Buying the building had been faster than negotiating. Isabella wanted to hate him. She wanted someone to blame for losing her mother. Instead, she found a man who had spent years blaming himself. Their relationship changed slowly. He taught her how to trust. She taught him how to smile. He cooked terrible pasta. She laughed for the first time in years. Neither admitted they were falling in love. Both already knew. But happiness rarely arrives without demanding a price. One evening, Isabella discovered another hidden file. It revealed the final truth. Her father had never abandoned her. He had secretly continued searching for enough money to buy back her freedom. He died trying. Adrian had hidden that truth because he feared the grief would destroy her. Instead, the secret almost destroyed their relationship. Feeling betrayed, Isabella left. Adrian let her go, because love built on control wasn't love at all. Weeks passed. Isabella started rebuilding her life. She opened a small bakery using money she earned herself. For the first time, every choice belonged to her. Yet every quiet morning reminded her of Adrian, not the feared Mafia boss, the lonely man carrying years of regret. Meanwhile, Adrian made a decision that shocked everyone around him. He began selling his criminal interests. His own advisors thought he had gone mad. Power had protected him his entire life. But Isabella had taught him something stronger: peace. One rainy afternoon, she found another envelope waiting outside her bakery. Inside was the original letter from her mother, along with a handwritten note from Adrian. I kept my promise. You are finally free. If freedom leads you away from me, I'll still be grateful I met you. There was no request, no manipulation, no attempt to win her back, just acceptance. And that was when Isabella finally understood. Real love never asks someone to stay. It gives them the freedom to choose. She ran through the rain searching for him, not because she owed him anything, because she wanted to. She found Adrian standing alone outside the abandoned club, where everything had begun. Neither needed grand speeches. She simply placed her hand in his. The building that had once been a prison was later transformed into a community center, helping women escape exploitation and rebuild their lives. Adrian never tried to erase his past. He simply stopped allowing it to define the future. As for Isabella, she no longer measured wealth by money. The richest moment of her life had come on the day a man capable of owning everything chose instead to give away the only thing that truly mattered: her freedom. And in setting her free, he unknowingly freed himself as well. Because sometimes the greatest love story isn't about a powerful man rescuing a broken woman. Sometimes it's about two wounded souls teaching each other that love is never possession. Love is the courage to open the cage, even if the person you love might fly away. And when they choose to come back on their own, that's when you know it was always real.